What's up guys, it's Toby here, and today I'm looking at the beast that is the Retribution Paladin, going over the rotation, talent and glyphs that you're going to be using if you want to play your Paladin to the best of its ability. If you do want me to do a more in-depth guide looking at the more difficult parts of playing the Paladin, please send us a tweet on Twitter or leave a comment on the video. Anyway, let's get on with the rotation. Okay guys, so the rotation that you're going to be using is on the screen now. As you can see, it's slightly different to other classes as it uses a priority system more than a set rotation. So you're going to have to play your Paladin depending on what's happening in the game at the moment of time. It's not actually that difficult to play. The first priority on that list is getting your Inquisition buff up as soon into the fight as you can. And as you can see there, it gives you an extra 30% holy damage and 10% critical strike chance. Basically a massive damage buff, so you want to keep that up through as much of the fight as you can. The next priority on that list is using your Templar's Verdict ability, your main retribution ability, with 5 holy power to make sure that you are doing the most damage on the target. The next priority on the list is an ability that is only generated when you're either using Avenging Wrath or the target is below 20% health. This ability is called Hammer of Wrath, and it basically just hits the target very hard and generates 1 holy power, so you want to be using that every single time you can. The next priority is using your holy power generating abilities such as your Hammer of Wrath, Exorcism, Judgment and Crusader Strike. You want to be using these just to generate the holy power and keep the fight ticking along. There are a few important cooldowns as a Paladin that you want to be using. The first one is this one here, Avenging Wrath, which is nearly dropping off. And you want to be using that as much as you can because it gives you an extra 20% damage and healing and allows you to use Hammer of Wrath. The second main cooldown is this one here, Guardian of Ancient Kings, which summons a nice Guardian here, which does a hell of a lot of damage. As you can see, it's hitting for about 25k there, and with my trinket on, it's also hitting for 41k. This creates a stacking buff, which increases your strength by up to 20%, depending on how many stacks there are. The third main cooldown is a talent which you get at level 90 called Execution Sentence. It drops a large hammer on the target, dealing a small amount of damage at first, but then creates a big damage burst at the end. And you want to use this on every single cooldown. Try and time it with trinkets such as the Brutal Talisman of the Shadowpan Assault, and you want to use it to create just an extra burst of damage when you need it. Okay, that's the rotation covered. So the next section of the guide is looking at the talents that you're going to be choosing. As you can see, I've got my talents up here. The first set of talents doesn't necessarily matter what you pick. They're all basically movement increasing things. But for raiding, I find Speed of Light most important, as it basically gives you a burst of movement when you need it the most. So the next tier is basically another one which you can just pick whenever you want. Fist of Justice, Repentance, and Burden of Guilt. Basically, Burden of Guilt slows the target down, which is more of a PvP talent, I find. Repentance basically puts the target into a state of meditation for a minute, which isn't too much use for raiding, as many of the targets aren't actually, you're not allowed to use this ability on them. The next one is Fist of Justice, which is quite useful for stunning ads and stuff like that in boss fights, so that's the one I've gone with just for the extra utility. Sacred Shield on the next tier is probably the most important one, as it basically gives you a small absorption shield throughout the fight, so you want to keep that up on you as much as possible to make sure the healers don't struggle a great deal with it. The next one is Unbreakable Spirit. Basically allows you to get an extra cooldown rate on your Divine Shield, Divine Protection and Lay on Hands, and spending Holy Power reduces this cooldown as much as you can. So the more you use Inquisition and Templar's Verdicts, the more it reduces the rate of these abilities, which is quite useful, I think. The only talent you can take in the next tier is Sanctified Wrath, as you can see on the screen now. It basically allows your Avenging Wrath to last 50% longer, and also reduces the cooldown of Hammer of Wrath while in Avenging Wrath, so this ability is absolutely great for Paladins. The final tier, I tend to use Execution Sentence. As you can see, a hammer slowly falls from the sky, causing 93,500 damage over 10 seconds, which is a very nice amount of damage. In terms of glyphs, there aren't many you can go for as Retribution Paladins. The 3 I've chosen here are Glyph of Double Jeopardy, the Glyph of Mass Exorcism, and the Glyph of Templar's Verdict, which I find the most useful in many situations. The Glyph of Double Jeopardy, as you can see on the screen, Judging a target increases the damage of your next judgment by 20%, but only if used on a different second target. This basically allows your judgment to do 20% more damage on fights that involve quite a lot of target switching, so that's quite nice for fights like the Stone Guard in Mogushan Vaults, as you're quite frequently switching targets between the different bosses, so that's quite useful in situations such as that. The Glyph of Mass Exorcism reduces the range of exorcism to melee range, but causes 25% damage to all enemies within 8 yards of the primary target. This is quite useful because I'm spending the majority of my time in melee range, so the splash damage on all the different adds is very, very useful. And the final Glyph of Templar's Verdict, I feel is the only glyph that every single paladin should have. But you take 10% less damage for 6 seconds after dealing damage with Templar's Verdict, which is your main ability, which you're going to be using every 4 or 5 seconds. So basically, throughout the entire fight, you're going to be taking 10% less damage, which is quite nice on the healers, just in a raid environment, even in PvP or dungeons, things like that. The extra 10% is very nice for reducing the amount of damage and reducing the amount of healing that the healers need to give to you, meaning they will have more mana throughout the rest of the fight. Thank you for watching this guide, guys, on the Retribution Paladin in 5.3. If you do want me to do a more in-depth guide, please remember to send us a tweet on Twitter or just leave a comment in the YouTube video. I will be planning on doing more guides in the future on different classes and different specs, so if you do have a specific one you want me to cover, please leave a comment below and I will try and cover it as soon as possible. Thank you for watching, guys, and remember to subscribe.